Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views of myself, Salilo Makwidi. The time is 10 minutes before 9 Central African time. And I've been in conversation with City Power Spokesperson Isaac Mangena. And we'll be having a conversation about a really cool initiative that they've come up with as City Power. They've introduced the ward by ward service delivery program, trying to fill in the gap in the current service delivery model, and we'll try to get more insight on that and what they're really trying to achieve with it. Mr. Mangena, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
And good morning to the listeners.
I want to jump right into it. What prompted City Power to introduce the ward by ward service delivery program? And I think most importantly, what kind of gaps were you guys trying to fill when it comes to the current service delivery model?
Yeah, so often we sit in our offices, we sit in our comfortable chairs and aircon offices and dictate to the teams on the ground on what needs to happen. So with this model, what we are trying to do is basically to bring the service to the doorstep of our customers, because our customers are really important, and we have seen we're responding also to the survey that has been made by City Power customer service survey that basically indicated that the customers were not really happy with our responses in terms of the outages that we are dealing with, in terms of the billing queries that they have. They take time to reach our offices. And so we're building up to the former CEO's plans, where she introduced the service delivery centers, where all the 8 depots were basically converted to customer-friendly offices. But then that also did not mean that everyone can be able to access those service delivery or the depots. So what we are doing now is that we are coming out with the trailers, and in those trailers we have packed every service that you want. If you are looking for a metering solution, if you're looking for an outage that has been going on for a long time, you'll find the technicians in the trailer. You'll find people that will basically be able to deal with your query inside the trailer. You'll also actually take the technician home to ensure that they deal with that issue in that ward at that time on that day. So that's basically what you're doing. And I think we saw yesterday when we started it in Bryanston, where there were queues, long queues, testament to the fact that people really wanted to reach City Power, and they were not able to with that model that we used to have. So currently, we're basically making sure that we go straight to their doorstep and ensure that they get the service that they need, and we're able to respond on the spot immediately.
You're reflecting on the launch of this program. It was in Brighton, I think, Ward 104. Is there a specific reason why you guys chose that area as the launch region for this program?
And not necessarily. I think in the past few days, when we were basically in trouble, if I can put it that way, with the weather dipping and the demand for electricity increasing, we saw a lot of calls coming, especially from that area. And I think it is where we said maybe let's start there so that we can go to other areas as well. I think we do have many other areas that are sore points within the city of Johannesburg, and areas such as Rudeport, Rembek was also having issues, Hestil, Auckland Park area also. So we are going to go around. But with Bryanston, we decided let's go to where the councillor also was willing to host us, because the wards are basically the constituencies are belonging to the councillors. So we speak to the councillors, and if the councillors are ready and they're there on that time, and they also are raising certain issues that we feel need to be resolved immediately, that's when we basically decided let's go to 104, let's deal with the issues there, and then we can then be able to go out. But I think it's also part of the broader picture that we're trying to do in terms of the relaunching of our relationship with our customers, which are also saw as starting the imbizos, electricity imbizos. And I think it then trickles down to those wards, because with the imbizos, we address the whole area, the whole region, and from there we will then move in ward by ward to deal with the issues that were raised in those imbizos. So that is basically what we are trying to do, that we relaunch this relationship with our customers.
And when it comes to the the assessment themselves, what will they exactly be looking like? What's going to be happening? Will you be assessing power stations, the substations, and the aging infrastructure and everything and anything around the ward?
Yeah, look, I think City Power is operating a business that is, as we speak currently, we are really having problems, especially in terms of the aging infrastructure. And I think it does not help that we've got a lot of people still coming into Johannesburg, investing in Johannesburg. You've got a lot of people that are coming to Joburg to look for jobs, and they set up anywhere. Informal settlements are mushrooming. So we need to basically make sure that we strengthen our network, we invest in the development or reinvestment into the network and the infrastructure. So we are sitting currently at about 44 billion rand in backlog
Mm,
of our infrastructure development. And I think that does not help in terms of the annual budgets that we're getting, capex budgets that we're getting, maintenance budget that we're getting. So as Citipa, we decided that maybe we need to basically start doing, especially the routine maintenance, which has been able to assist us. So it's the same as if you are driving an old Ford Cortina and you keep on servicing it, it will take you far. So that's
mm,
basically what we're trying to do, to say the network, the system, the equipment is still okay if we service it, and it has actually been able to carry us while we're looking at other alternatives, like your independent power producers, the people that are doing solar, the people that are doing gas, and so forth, so that we can then be able to augment the electricity supplies that we're basically having. So to answer your question, what you're going to do is that we're dealing with the issues like your cable faults on the spot. We're dealing with the issues like your the meter that is not able to take your units or it is bypassed. We replace it on the spot for free. We're also looking at the issues like if the substation has had problems, because we're sitting also with about close to 1,000 plants that are out of service. So plants, when they're out of service, it means that when there is an outage, we do not have an alternative to connect you. So in the past, we'll be able to, if we lose this port, we know that we can then be able to connect Slelo from another port. But recently, with the amount of theft that has been happening and vandalism that has been happening, we end up actually having most of those plants that we as standby, also going out, and we're not able to restore. We need to fix on the spot and be able to do that. So we want to also bring that number down so that we are able to have alternatives or redundancy should there
mm,
be any outages that are happening. So those are some of the things that we're doing. But we're also looking at queries, because they've been in our survey. We've speak where customers are basically complaining about the queries with the bills that we give them, that they are not a true reflection of what they are consuming. So we're also looking into those so that we can then be able to clear the issues of the billing. Since we took over this billing function from the city of Johannesburg, you remember that it was sitting there, and there were a lot of complaints when it was there, and we decided that let it be within in-house within City Power, so that we can then be able to be fully responsible, fully accountable to the residents that we supply electricity, and be able to deal with this queries. And I think we've seen with the numbers going very, very, very low since we took it in July last year, 2025. And I think we've seen those queries going down. So with this trailer, we're also saying we want to basically make sure that we deal with those kind of issues so that residents do not have to suffer because of the faults that are happening in-house in City Park.
You touched on something that's very, very important. The backlog that you guys have, and just how significant it is. Is City Power now at a position to attend to, the backlog, and do you have the budget for it? I think it's the most important question.
Yes, 44 billion rands. That is the backlog that I'm talking about. It's actually the
Mm,
money that we need to basically make sure that we bring that down, or at least we completely eradicate it. The truth of the matter is that we do not have that budget, and I think that's why even our supplier of electricity, Eskom, has been writing letters saying that we're owing them and so forth. So, but I think to answer to your question, yes, we are having a plan to deal with the backlog. And most of this backlog, you remember that electricity supplies in Johannesburg is as old as the discovery of gold itself. I mean, when
mm,
The first gold was discovered, electricity was generated to push those mining activities that were starting to happen. That is when electricity started. So we still have some of the equipment or infrastructure that is as old as that. We've got infrastructure that is substations or transformers that are about 70 years old, and as such, they are no longer um, servicing as they should or performing as much as they should. Also, the technology is changing in terms of how electricity generation and distribution is supposed to happen and transmission. So we are trying to, every time we get a budget, this financial year, we're sitting at almost 2 billion budget. From that 44 billion, we're sitting at only 2. That is the fraction
Mm.
of what we need. Last year it was about 1.2 billion, which also did not really do much. But with the little that we're always getting, we try by all means to um, ensure that we go to those areas that are really sore points so that we can stabilize the network there, and then we can then be able to also, get revenue that will reinvest in the infrastructure. But the routine maintenance that I was saying, and that I gave an example about an old Cortina car, that you can still drive it further. You can still go to far areas with that car if you service it. And I think that's what we've been doing. That's what we are doing currently, where we are basically making sure that that maintenance is happening. We refurbish, we do everything, and then we make sure that the supply is happening. But we're also moving in terms of our plans to
Mm.
invite the private sector, so that the private sector can also come and assist in terms of the investment. I think we saw with the street lighting in the city of Johannesburg, Josie My Josie coming on board and basically taking over some of the areas like Mabone, Braamfontein, and ensuring that the street lights there are basically installed. We have seen currently with the 4 billion rands that we receive from the German government, from the German Development Bank, which was strictly conditioned to go straight to the infrastructure development. And I think it will
Mm.
also assist in terms of some of those. And I think we've developed a huge plan that will ensure that this year we're basically going to deal with all those areas that have seen a lot of outages coming from, and where we have seen a lot of vandalism and theft, and also those areas where residents were not actually receiving electricity because of the outages, especially in the non-affluent areas like Alexandra, areas like Soweto, and so forth, where people were not paying for electricity. So we want to basically invest some of that money in there so that people can basically start paying for that electricity. And I think that was the message that the executive mayor, Councillor Tata Morero, and even our CEO, Mr. Charles Luwan, were basically relaying to the residents of Alexandra to say, we're coming to fix. We want to know your problems. We want to know where we should start. We want to work with you, carry us along the way, so that at the end of all this investment, we can then be able to get the returns on the investment with you paying for that electricity. And I think that is basically where we are going, and we're hoping that we will, in the long run, be able to cut down. But I think the other important part about this thing is that we should no longer focus on electricity. I think you can attest, and at this level, that electricity on its own is very expensive. A lot of people are not longer able
Mm.
to afford it. Even those that are in the middle or even higher classes, they complain about the expense or the cost of electricity. And I think even the minister, Dr. Hossein Zoram also indicated this week and even last week about how electricity is unaffordable, and trying to work on those tariffs that are coming in every year, to say we need to basically find alternatives. So that's basically what we're also doing at City Power, to say let's not only put bracket people within the electricity, let them give them alternatives so that they can then be able to say, instead of using electricity for the stove, how about I use gas for the stove? How about I use gas for the geyser
Mm.
to bath, and for the kids to be able to go to school? So those are the things that we are doing, and I think we have already started with onboarding some of the short-term power purchase people. We have also opened up the IPPs, which will be the long term, and we are talking to others so that we can then start putting solar even on the factories or the industries. Well, we're starting with our own departments within the city of Johannesburg, departments like Joburg Water, pick it up to ensure that they are offices are all green, they've got solar, they are running at least on 50% electricity and 50% alternative energy. And I think that's what we want to do even for the residents. I mean, you can imagine if an old woman, a pensioner, who's earning SASA money, is using gas. Gas can basically take longer than when you tell her to go and buy electricity, which will just be like 250 every week. And by the end of the month, she has taken all the pension money that she got from government to pay government to get government service. But I think that is not sustainable, and that's why we're trying to basically alternate and find some other solutions.
I want to come to another, I think, important point that you mentioned, the issue of public lighting, especially in Johannesburg. It's a really juicy mabone, but mabone aganye. What's the conversation around that? What's the plan around public lighting, which I think it's a concern for a lot of citizens, especially we just come out of the winter months, and it was really dark and unsafe. We know the issue around public lighting and how it deters crime even. The general plan around that, if you can just unpack it for us, would really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're correct. I think the theme around our campaign on street lighting is basically to return the city to the city of gold and Josie Maboneng, as you put it, so that, when you were coming from Limpopo, like some of us, and coming to Joburg, the first thing that basically wows you is the lights, the amount of lights that are everywhere before you basically get to where you can go to, just seeing those lights at night. So we want that to basically come back. It's not doom and gloom. It's not dark everywhere every night. It's just that there are pockets where we're basically having issues. So what we're doing with the street lighting, we're currently managing about over 300,000 street lights across the city of Johannesburg. And as City Power also managing the street lights even in the ESCOM supplied areas like Soweto, like Sandton, Deep Sluot, Ivory Park, Orange Farm, and so forth. And those are what we are doing as City Power. So in some of these areas, the dynamics are that you find that ESCOM itself, because obviously when we do that, we pay ESCOM for the street lights in ESCOM supplied areas, as that I mentioned. But you find that ESCOM has got that policy where they need residents, they switch off residents, the supply for residents. They need residents to pay 6,000 rands before they can reinstate that supply. And if they don't switch on the connection point of the load centers. So you find that affects even the supply of street lights in those pockets where they're doing that. I think in most of Soweto, that's what they are doing, and other areas. So what we're doing as City Power is that we basically are investing in solar street lights. So when ESCOM or even ourselves, we've got outages in our areas, we are basically still having solar street lights operating at night. This has actually already proven to work better, especially in Maboneng. You remember there was even a marathon happening a few weeks back, and it was lit, even where in areas where there were issues like cable theft or outages that happened because of the cold and so forth. So I think that has actually assisted. But we're also introducing those Apollo lights, but this time we're doing them as solar Apollo lights. And we have installed over close to 300 of those across the city of Johannesburg in the past 2-3 years. And I think they have been proving in areas like Alexandra. I think I drove around London Road in Alexandra yesterday, and those streetlights, even when residents nearby do not have electricity, those streetlights were still basically bringing the light, and of course ensuring that there's safety for women and even everyone who's coming out from Penn and other areas, coming from the taxi, going home at night. There is some light on the road, and it kind of like provides that safety, but also for the cars in terms of the issues of hijack and so forth. So I think that is where we're also going to reinvest some of the money too. And I think the mayor also spoke about it in Alexander, but also the CEO when we were at the Gauteng Premier Banyaza Lesufis Impizo in Soweto Mletsane 2 weeks back. We also indicated that we are going to roll out more of those so that we can then plug in where the streetlights are failing. And I think one other thing that I need to really mention is the impact of vandalism and theft on our streetlights, because that is where we realize that we are not able to to provide some of these services properly because the street lights are being targeted. I think someone who has driven from Cosmos City going towards Lanzeria Airport, you would have seen new street lights being installed, but then about a month later, those street lights were mowed down. They were basically cut with a torch, or I don't know what they were using, and they were just left to fall on the wayside, suggesting that there could have been sabotage from some people, because often those streetlights are just mowed down without anything taken from them. And we then decided, okay, maybe we just need to put in a concrete pillars and then ensure they are not able to be stolen. You get also instances where the overhead ABC or aerial bundle cable that we use on the streetlights connecting one streetlight to the next, it's also being stolen, and often it's stolen by the people in the informal settlements, because when we do operations to cut off illegal connections in the informal settlements, most of those cables we find are the ABC cables, meaning that the informal settlement will be on, but the street light will be off in that community. And that is something that we have basically been dealing with, also trying to, with this solar street lights, we are trying to basically cut down on the usage of the ABC cables so that those that are stealing it do not find anything to steal. But you also then, and I'm sure you've gone to a funeral or even a wedding and find that street lights are being used to light up the tents and other things in those areas or families where there is a funeral. And I think we need to call those people out in between those tiers when we are at the funeral. We need to tell them that this is a property of government. This is a municipal property that you are not supposed to use or to have it used. Obviously, it may not be the family itself that has basically stolen that light. They are using service providers, but we need to basically call those things out, because it means that that light is shining in the tent, but the streets are dark and people are getting robbed, mugged, raped, and cars are getting hijacked. So I think we need to basically also start looking into ourselves as communities to say we need to do something to assist the government and municipality in terms of dealing with cable theft and vandalism.
Nyokolwa le diphiri starting fights in people's funerals. I have a question here from Mohammed Sadiq. I think if you can just answer at top of the dome, it would be really great, because they've been trying to reach out to City Power without any kind of assistance. He says he's from Ward 54 in Robersham Evans Park, and they're asking about prepaid meters. They're saying they're currently not available. City Power suspended new prepaid meters since 2025, as I mentioned, in Ward 54, and they have a lot of issues with the estimated billing issues that have accumulated for almost 24 months, and City Power has not been coming forward and assisting them in that regard. Any idea on that? Any solution that we can propose?
Okay. From the top of my head, what I'm understanding the question to say that this person is on postpaid meter, which is being billed on estimation instead of the proper reading and getting the bill, and this person wants to convert to prepaid, and that service has been suspended from City Power since 2025.
Yes.
I know about that program. In fact, this is something that we have been doing as part of our auditing program, because we've realized, as when we're looking closely into some of the challenges that we're having, especially in terms of the billing discrepancies, we find that there is a whole lot of things that we need to clean up in that space, so that we can then be able to bill the residents properly. So what we've been doing, even in terms of the prepaid electricity, the purchasing of the units and so forth. So we have enlisted, we've basically started a program to clean up in terms of that, and I think that is coming to an end. And the listener is right. This thing has been going on since 2025. I remember sitting in one of the EXCO meeting where the report was being presented, and it is really, it shows that there is a problem. And one of those problems is that we've got ghost vendors that are operating within our systems. We also have people, both internally and externally, that have basically taken over some of these challenges that we are basically having. But we also identify some gaps that are on our side as City Power, but also on the customer side in terms of the billing of postpaid billing regime. that we also wanted to basically fix. And that's why we have postponed the conversion, because we want to make sure that when a person converts to prepaid, they convert in a cleaner environment. And I think we should be able to present the final report maybe in this coming week, so that we can then be able to start allowing people to move from postpaid to prepaid. Because postpaid, and I'm sure the listener can attest, is a little bit expensive, because you've got a lot of charges there, service charges, you've got that network charges. So before you actually even pay for electricity, you're already sitting at almost 1,000 rands of those network and postpaid charges, which is something that is not being charged in the prepaid. So I think most customers are trying to move away because of that. But the flip side to it is that we are not going to allow the conversion if you are installing solar, because now you are basically moving to another system that basically says that you can basically have alternation, where you can use solar, but then when solar is not working, you can still have electricity on available on demand. So we are trying to basically also manage that, and I will come out with a statement and come back here and talk about it properly, so that customers can understand that if you are basically going to move or install solar, you may not be on prepaid. And it's also partly because of your own benefit as a customer, because when you're on solar, one of the things that is happening across the world, not only in the city of Johannesburg, is that you can basically be able to sell back your power to the state or city power. So to do that, you cannot do it on prepaid. You can only do that on bi-directional meter, which is only postpaid. And that's why we advise residents to remain on postpaid, so that should they generate more energy, they can then be able, using that bi-directional meter, they can then be able to sell it back to us, back to the system at City Power, and then we are able to credit them back. So we are not able to do that if you're on prepaid, but we will explain that properly. I'll come out maybe in a month to basically explain it to the residents.
All right. We'll hope to chat to you again when that happens. Isaac Mangena, City Power spokesperson. Thank you so much for chatting to us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Thank you. I appreciate it.
There we go. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. News and views will be back with you after this.
We work hard